Good morning, and welcome to United Policyholders Roadmap to Recovery webinar that we are doing live from the Napa Valley Community Foundation. And I want to thank the team at the Napa Valley Community Foundation for getting us up here. We are offering this information as part of our long-term recovery support that we are providing to wildfire-impacted households in Napa and Sonoma stemming from the 2017 fires. We're going to be talking about insurance-related problem solving at the 2-year anniversary of the fire, and my name is Amy Bach. Okay. Very briefly about United Policyholders, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a voice and an information resource for consumers in all 50 states. We have a 28-year track record and subject matter expertise in the insurance issues and related challenges that people have in the aftermath of wildfires. We say we're not for profit, not for sale, because we do not take financial support from insurance companies. We're funded by donations and grants, and we have an outstanding volunteer corps, all of whom have personal or professional expertise in disaster recovery and insurance. About me, I've been a professional advocate for insurance consumers since 1983. I've been a policyholder attorney since 1981. I had to get my law degree in order to be the most effective advocate for insurance consumers that I could be, because insurance policies are legal contracts, and a lot of the challenges that you may have been navigating related to your insurance and recovering your damages really does kind of stem from legal issues and legal arguments. I co-founded United Policyholders in 1991, right around the time of the Oakland Berkeley fire. I branded and built the Roadmap to Recovery program, and I have been active in helping strengthen consumer protections for disaster survivors and insurance consumers. I've helped write a lot of the provisions in the insurance code and the rules that are there to protect you in how your insurer should be treating you. And I've had a lot of experience in all the issues related to disaster recovery and sort of best practices for navigating what for many people is, some people describe it as a second disaster dealing with their insurance, but our eternal hope is that is not the case, and that a lot of the issues that we can help you navigate can be resolved without having to, let's say, hire a lawyer and sue. But we are here to give you the full spectrum of options here at the 24-month mark past the fire. This workshop is intended to be general guidance only, not legal advice. And then we don't endorse or warrant any of the sponsors listed on our website. I'm the only speaker today, so that doesn't matter. Okay, we warrant what I say. Okay, so if you're not already familiar, here's our website, uphelp.org. We have a dedicated library for your fire, the Northern California wildfires. Actually, that's wrong. It's the 2000 North Bay fires. And I'm just going to point for a minute here, where it says resources, that brings you to a drop-down menu that takes you right to the library that's specific to your 2017 fires. Okay. There it is. That's the landing page for the library. And whenever, over the last couple of years, whenever something would come up that we thought might be useful to your community, we would add it to our library. So there's all kinds of Department of Insurance bulletins and that sort of thing. And again, resources, and then you'll find when you get to your library, you'll see a schedule of upcoming events. I do have to do a little plug for our survey. Mark, do you have those little, if you can hand out those little gray, the little gray half pages. So one of the ways that we are able to try to influence outcomes in your favor with your insurance companies and or if you're dealing with the county or building department, what have you, is by is that we conduct surveys. We do them at the 6 months after a disaster, 12 and 24. So our 12 months from last year, the data that we gathered was basically the legislators, your legislators who went in and tried to get reforms through. They used our data. They used our survey data as the evidence for why reforms were needed. So our surveys are not just, they're not for fun. They're actually they're very useful to us and to you. So if you could just take a few minutes to take our 24 months, we're not doing great right now with the, I think we have like 150, and that's not a good sample set. So like we have one going right now in the campfire where we're well over 1,500. So we want to try to get so if you guys can do, fill them out, and if you don't mind, I know there's other surveys floating around. If you just, if you're chatting with other fire survivors, just say, hey, just take the UP survey. It's super fast and easy. Okay, so I want to just recap for those of you who are watching or those of you who are here in the room, the basic coverages, that you should at this point have a pretty good handle on what your maximums that you could be entitled to are, and how many of you at this point would say that you feel like you are somewhat of an insurance expert? Yeah, okay. I see one person has raised his hand, and I also noticed, I think you filed a complaint with the Department of Insurance.
That's my big question.
Okay, well, we are definitely going to get to that. So, a lot of, hopefully, again, you don't have to, it shouldn't become your second job to become an insurance expert, but again, because insurance funds are generally going to be the number one source of the gas in the car that's going to get you from where the debris field back into a replaced home. It is important to sort of understand the process, and because it really isn't at all like what most people think from what all the ads that you've seen on TV, and it just turns out that when you're looking to get 6 figures out of a large corporation, you kind of have to have your documentation in order, and you have to treat it as a business negotiation. So a lot of what our organization is about is kind of, we're like your translator, between the insurance industry and all their lingo and all their, and the complicated way that they have set things up, and then your reality. So again, if you came to any of our workshops that we've been doing for the last 2 years in this area, that what we always want to start with is make sure you have a pretty good handle on the maximum amount of money that is available to you under the policy that you bought. And that can be tricky because of this, because when I say this, I'm talking about endorsements that are basically pieces of your policy, right? So the basic policy with those 4 main categories: dwelling, other structures, separate structures, personal property, sometimes called contents, and loss of use. This is a sample. Those are the main things we want to make sure you feel like you have a pretty good handle on. And if you don't, we are actually having a clinic right after this. We've got volunteer lawyers that will be coming up and meeting with people and that signed up in advance. But if you feel like, I feel like I'm not, those of you who are here in person, if you feel like you still would like to get another opinion on whether there's any more money available to you under any of the endorsements, or whether your insurer has done the math right on how much is available to you, including, let's say, a replacement, if you have extended replacement, that sort of thing, you can certainly try to get the ear of one of the lawyers that's coming up here at 12:30 for the clinic. Okay, we can go to the next one. So what are some of the common issues that people may be dealing with on their dwelling, coverage A? How many of you are here because you want to make sure that you are able to collect the full replacement value of the dwelling that you lost? Okay, so obviously I know people have different issues, but that's generally the kind of big ticket item. You know, your insurer is saying they owe you X, and you think they might owe you Y, and you're trying to figure that out, or your insurer has applied depreciation and held back some money, and you just want to make sure that you understand what you have to give them in order for them to release everything that they might owe you. So that would be valuation disputes over the cost of putting back the house that you had. And then some of the other pretty common disputes that people seem to be having at this stage is if they want to replace the home that they lost, but they don't want to rebuild. They want to just buy, right? If that is you, then what most people are coming to us with on that topic is, okay, do I tell the insurance company that I'm not going to rebuild? What do I have to give the insurance company in terms of proof of a house I want to buy? And then can I export benefits? Can I say, if I were going to rebuild and that the cost of rebuilding would be above my basic limit, and therefore I need my extended as well, and then if rebuilding would have triggered some code upgrades and, you know, quantifying that, and then which is because the law in California that gives you the right to replace your home by buying instead of rebuilding is still relatively new. A lot of adjusters they make mistakes on it. They don't really know what the law is, and the law actually just changed again last year to clarify what is available to you, except there's still one unsettled area, and that is whether how many of you are interested in buying a replacement home? Okay. So the land value deduction issue is that kind of, when the law first passed in California, it's like 2007 maybe, that clarified, there had been cases in the courts for years that said you could replace your home by buying, but they didn't specify how much money the insurer should pay you if you replace your home by buying, because traditionally, you know, for the first 20 years of United Policyholders' existence, we would tell people the only way to really max out your benefits is to rebuild, but that is now not the case anymore. Now you do not have to rebuild to max out your benefits, but there's still this one little gray area about land value. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And Mark, if you wouldn't mind just keeping me on time, because I think we started a little late. So, okay, so then on just a refresher here on how insurance companies do their claim adjusting. They don't do it the way most people would like them to. They're like, okay, you know, you owe me this, pay me this, right? There are all these hoops and formulas and things, and so the typical way an insurance company will pay is they will apply depreciation, which is a deduction in value due to wear and tear, and then they will hold back an amount from what they pay you until you actually do replace it, and then they will pay you that difference sometimes. Now, some of you may have gotten cash out. Anybody get the cash out early on? That happens a lot. Sometimes when the insurance company knows you're underinsured, sometimes they'll just throw that check at you as quick as they can and hope that that's the last they'll hear from you. But sometimes, you know, they will stick to their normal process, which is they say, you've got to replace it in order to get the difference. The replacement cost, the cost to put your home back with new building materials, you want to agree with them on that, but they will not pay you that until you've actually given them the documentation to show that you're actually replacing. And you know, that kind of goes back to the whole, well, they don't want people to take advantage and you know, burn their houses down on purpose and then, you know, to collect the money, which of course, in the disaster scenario, should be completely irrelevant. But insurers have not really adjusted their processes that much in terms of like how they handle a one-off fire versus how they handle a fire that destroys, you know, 7,000 homes. They still kind of have the same hoops, mostly. Not always, but mostly. Okay. Why do they do that? Again, that's to prevent, they say it's to prevent fraud. Generally, it's that they want to make sure that you don't take the money and, you know, go around the world on a cruise or something. Although some people would say, well, what's it for them? Why should they care? But this is just the way that it's done. Okay, so again, in California, we have all kinds of consumer protections in the insurance code, in the regulations, and again, if you have a replacement cost policy, our code has added a protection to say that if you have replacement cost coverage, that they have to pay you full replacement costs. It doesn't mean that they can't pay the actual cash, the depreciated amount, and hold back, but ultimately they're supposed to pay you the full replacement. Is there a time limit to collect your replacement cost benefits? Yes, and it's typically 24 months from the date that the first payment towards actual cash value was made, which of course, but if you want to go to the next one, what if you need more time, right? How many of you, I mean, I'm guessing you're here, are any of you in the middle of rebuilding? Okay, so you can get extensions, additional extensions, and again,
just got.
Okay, good. So this is an extension of the time for you to claim your full benefits for the replacement value of your destroyed assets, right? So if they've given you, not you guys, they gave you your full, and now I'm not sure yet what you're fighting for, but we'll figure that out. But for most people, if they've given you your actual cash value and they've said, now if you want to get the difference between the actual cash value and the replacement value, you have to give us proof that you've actually spent more than what we've given you already, right? If you need more time to give them that proof, they must give you 6-month extensions as long as you have given them good cause. And so meaning given them reasons in writing as to why you need more time, okay? And unlike your additional living expense benefits, which are, for a lot of people, just got cut off at the 2-year mark, you do have the right in the code to get extensions on your ability to collect replacement value. Okay? For loss valuation disputes, real brief, most insurers these days use a program called Xactimate to figure out how much in their opinion, it should cost to put the house back that you lost and how much they owe you. But of course, the computer doesn't build houses, builders build houses. So Xactimate is only as accurate as the skill set of the person that input the data into that program or knows how to use it or doesn't. Because Xactimate pricing often doesn't fully account for labor and material shortages after disasters, and contractors' estimates for the actual cost are often substantially higher than what an Xactimate estimate would show. So here's an example in the next slide of here's the estimate that the insurance company made with Xactimate to put a house back, $1,013,000, and then a builder with sub-bids estimated that exact same project at $2 million. So $1 million was what the computer said, $2 million was what a builder said. So that just illustrates to you why some of the processes that insurance companies use to, you know, to get their claims resolved skew low, and why sometimes, or all the time, you know, you're going to want to get your eyes open a little bit by doing exactly what you're doing, coming to one of our workshops and learning. Next. Okay, so, you know, we always recommend the best way to get through this process and put it behind you is to get an agreed scope of loss. What is that? That is basically if you did put that house back the way it was, same size, same footprint, same materials, same features, how much would it cost? And that is the scope of loss, which sometimes we call it as was or as built. And the reason that we emphasize this is that that it, you know, no matter how much or little you know about insurance, you can understand the logic that this is what you had, and then so the insurance company in general owes you for that, right? And the reality is subject to the policy, you know, fine print. But the reason we stress that is because so many claims go off track because no one hardly ever wants to put back the exact same house that they had. They want to do something different. And so getting a builder, all of whom are busy, in short supply, high demand, short supply, in these parts, very hard to get a builder to give you a price on a project that he or she knows you're never going to hire them to do. And it's a theoretical number anyway, because again, most people are not going to put that exact same house back. But it is a worthwhile exercise in our experience if you want to try to get to an agreement with your insurance company. It's an art, not a science. And so very often, you know, we do say to people that if you are dealing with an adjuster who's sticking with their number and you just feel like that number is low, you may have to spend some money actually paying an estimator to give you that scope of loss, because again, builders are not going to do, generally they're not going to do that for free because, again, they're busy. And it's just not, they're like, why would I spend time on a fictitious project, you know, anyway. So sometimes you have to actually pay someone to spend time to scope a fictitious project just to get to the number so that you can reach that agreement. Okay.
That was the one good thing that the insurance company did for us, is that they actually paid the contractor to do. So one of the folks that's in the room here with us, for those of you who are watching remotely, the gentleman was sharing that his insurance company actually did pay a contractor to do the scope, and to do that analysis. And again, so we say if you can get like for like, if you can start, at least the scope is not the price. The scope is how many square feet of what kind of lumber, you know, how much carpeting and what grade, how much paint, and again, what grade, how many coats of paint, you know, that's the scope. Then the estimate or the price is, okay, once you've said how much and what quality of lumber, then you figure out how much it would cost. Okay. But trying to isolate those differences is what we were, okay, so what are your options for replacing your home? You can rebuild the same house on the same lot. You can rebuild a different house on the same lot. You can rebuild a house on a different lot. You can buy a house locally. You can buy a house somewhere else, or you can just not buy or rebuild at all. All right? Those are your options. The process is almost identical for all those different options. And again, though, the most important thing is figuring out how much it would cost to rebuild the house you lost up to your policy limits. And of course, you want to make sure you're factoring in, when you're figuring out what they owe you, what code upgrades would be required for that mythical project, that fictitious project. Because again, most people will have a separate, hopefully, bucket of coverage for code upgrades. And you want to be able to say to the insurance company, these are the code upgrades that I would have had to make if I rebuilt, and this is approximately what I would have had to pay a contractor to make those upgrades. Next.
Okay, so again, reaching that agreement, I always point to this invisible thing. So when I point and I'm pointing, I'm talking, imagine that this is your old house, you know, and what it looked like, and sorry to bring that up. It's just, that's what I'm pointing to, the invisible house that was there. Now, so again, that is the measure of what the insurance company owes you. And getting to that number, again, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the people in the room and people who are watching have never even gotten to that number, because a lot of times the insurance company will try to just reach a settlement with you without actually going through that exercise, although they should. Okay, next one. Okay, this is for folks who are thinking, I just cannot deal with construction. I just want to buy a house, but I really don't want to leave money on the table. So can I buy a house for less money than my full extended replacement cost value and pocket the difference? No. Can I buy a bigger, better house adding in my own money or a loan? Yes. So what is the land value issue, and why are we talking about it? Because for those of you who want to replace by buying, some insurers want to deduct an amount for the land under the home you want to buy. They say, well, otherwise that's what they'll call unjust enrichment, because they'll say, well, why should, you still own the old lot, and now you want us to, you're going to cover, you want us to pay for a house that you're buying, and so then you're going to own two lots and one house instead of one lot, one house. Well, that is very superficial logic, because but it's to us. But it is an unsettled area of the law, and when something is not settled, insurance companies will, nature abhors a vacuum. If there's something unsettled, an insurance company typically is going to interpret it in their favor, right? So they know that they have that logical argument to say, well, we're not going to put you in a better position, right? But to us, the logic is, you're not in a better position. If, let's say this house, your house, let's just use round numbers. Let's say your old house would have cost $1 million to rebuild, okay? That's how much a builder would charge you for materials and labor and everything, $1 million. And then you say, okay, I'm going to find a house that costs $1 million, and so I want the insurer to give me that $1 million. So if you have found a house that costs $1 million, then our logic is, if $1 million house, including the land, right, then the house is actually worth less than $1 million. So you really are in the same exact position. Sure, you have two lots, but you have a lesser valued house because it costs the same as the old house. That's our logic. And, but no one has litigated this yet, Gary Rose. So, we would like to see somebody litigate it and win, because we think we're right. When I say we, I'm talking about United Policyholders and our volunteer lawyers. Most of our people feel that if your insurer is saying, oh no, we're going to deduct the value of the land under the house that you want to buy, we feel like if you took them to court, you would win. That's our view, but that's easy for us to say, because we're not struggling the way you guys are. So we understand that for some people, that's just a fight that they just cannot envision fighting. But we have been looking for test cases, and we have a couple lawyers who said they'd bring one, because some insurers are deducting and some aren't. Now, what has our organization done to help people? We've gone to the Department of Insurance, and we asked them to issue a bulletin, which they did, agreeing with us. So you have this to use as evidence, saying, in the department's opinion, insurers should not be deducting land value. But again, it doesn't have legal weight, other than it's the regulator saying something, but you would need a court to say, no, they can't deduct land value, in order to really have this be a slam dunk, because some insurers are deducting and some aren't. Okay, next. Solutions related to disputes over your content. How many of you are still working on your contents inventory? Okay, so our organization offers free tools to help you with that. We have a couple sample inventories, and it's just, again, if you need more time, you can ask for it, and again, not only should your insurer give you that extension of time to get your inventory in, and also to claim the full replacement value of your contents. But if they don't, the Department of Insurance should be able to help you there. And I'm going to, at the end here, we're going to give you we're going to talk about that real quick. Okay, so let's keep going. The other issue, how many of you have run out of ALE and have been trying to get your insurer to extend? Okay, so today, the California Department of Insurance is going to be publishing a list, naming names of the insurance companies that have done the right thing, the good thing, the fair thing, and said, well, obviously, that there are circumstances beyond people's control as to why they're not back in a replacement home 2 years later. It's just the scale of it and all that stuff. But because the legislature gave the areas that had fires after yours 36 months, but they only gave you guys 24 months because they said they couldn't retroactively alter the contract and on and on. You guys have a hard battle to fight on getting your insurer to pay more than 24 months. But like I said, today the department is going to be, they may have already put it out, they're going to be naming the names of the insurance companies that have agreed to be flexible and extend people's benefits, and the names of the insurers that are being tough, which, as I understand, pretty much is State Farm, I think nationwide. But anyway, we're continuing to put as much pressure on State Farm and the other insurers to relax their position and extend people's benefits.
I had an interesting conversation the other day with my insurance company, because I am buying. And she said I could buy the new house, but if there were things I wanted to do to it, to upgrade it,
Right.
make it whatever, that my loss of use could be extended until that was done.
Well, that's interesting. So I think, it's hard for me to stand in front of rooms of people who've gone through what you guys have gone through and say, you know what, the process is a lot more mushy than you think it would, and you get what you negotiate, and politics matter, and, all that, because it should be uniform and fair and consistent, but the reality is some people are getting extensions and some people aren't, and all we can do is try to empower you to be the squeakiest wheel possible. So we have sample letters. Here's a sample letter you can find on our website requesting extension of additional living expense or loss of use, and our suggestion is, that you hopefully you've been keeping a diary like we've been recommending from the beginning, and you have evidence of things that the insurance company did that made things take longer. So if they rotated adjusters and that caused delays, you want to document that in the request. If they gave you a lowball estimate of your home and that caused you to have to go out and hire somebody to help you, and that caused delays. So the delays that are going to move the needle on somebody like State Farm, it's not going to be there was rain, or I couldn't find a contractor. The arguments are going to be, you, State Farm, did this bad and you did this bad, and that's why you have to bend the rules on the contract, because they are tough. And they're going to say, it's a contract, and, that's the end of that. Okay. But we and the Department of Insurance are continuing to help put as much pressure, along with some very vocal activist survivors in Sonoma. So, and the pressure, we're just trying to bring as much public pressure to bear. There was a rally, and et cetera. Okay, so debris removal, obviously those of you who have gotten the jaw-dropping bills for the government provided. If you're in Sonoma, you need not worry. The county has been 100% clear. They are not going to be coming after people to get any insurance monies. If you've used the money already for rebuilding, they are not. They're going to look the other way. If you still have some money coming to you, if you're State Farm and you still have that 5%, they're definitely looking to collect that. And I think NAPA is taking a similar view, but I don't think they've been as publicly honest in saying we're not going to come after you. I don't think they've said I don't, somehow it just doesn't seem to be as big an issue in Napa. In Sonoma, people have been very, very concerned and vocal. Anybody here worrying that Napa is going to come back, the county is going to come back after?
I haven't gotten a bill, I don't know if
Okay.
anybody else.
Yeah, I think the county did it differently in Napa, and I'm not worried for any of you on this, because I think it's scary, but I think it's ultimately a non-issue. Okay, so lawsuits, if you are severely underinsured and you're thinking that you need to file a lawsuit, there's a concept called tolling, which means, like, there are lawsuit deadlines. Your policy probably has a 12-month. That deadline got extended by operation of law. But again, I think, if you are severely underinsured, you really have two options at this point. One is to hire a lawyer if you can, and on contingency and file a lawsuit. The other is to claim in the PG&E proceeding, which we're going to hit on that in a minute. Okay, next. Okay, we're going to skip right over this because we're running behind. Okay, on the if you are underinsured, here's the bottom line on the law. Current law holds you responsible for, it doesn't reflect reality, right? The reality is you go buy your insurance, and the insurance company says, we got you, and the agent says, here's your policy, you're great, right? But the law has a sort of a fiction that says that you walked in there and said, oh, I have a 3,000 square foot house with this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I want to make sure that you cover my fireplace and my granite counters or whatever. Nobody really does that, right? People just go and trust the expertise of the insurance pros, right? Isn't that why you pay commission? But the law is still saying that unless your agent or your insurer undertook the duty to set your limits accurately for your specific assets, then it's very, very hard to get your insurance company in court to retroactively reform. But on our way up here, we talked to a public adjuster who accompanied somebody into a mediation and witnessed firsthand the insurance company being willing to reform the limits and increase them. But again, it's like I was saying, this is a leverage thing. This is being that squeaky wheel and having some evidence that they gave you reason to believe your limits were adequate. And having it be a he said, she said isn't enough evidence. We're talking like an email, or, you were refinancing and there was some sort of communication back and forth where you said, I just want to make sure my limits are adequate, and they wrote back and said, oh yeah, you're good. Like, if you have anything in writing like that, then you really have a pretty strong case to be made whole. But it is very tough because the law still doesn't reflect reality. Okay, next. That's why perfect segue into the PG&E bankruptcy. Insurance funds are obviously critical to recovery, but since most of you are underinsured in at least one category, 24 months of ALE is not enough after a catastrophe of this magnitude, and insurance doesn't cover all the damages a disaster causes, such as insurance won't compensate you for emotional distress or a whole lot of things. Your tree removal, if you had to access your house by some sort of bridge or some sort of special roadway, again, probably you're out of pocket for those things, which is why, next slide, we strongly encourage everybody who was affected by these fires to submit a claim, but you got to hurry up and do it. October 21st is the deadline. Now, it's free. You don't need a lawyer. You can watch a webinar that we did last week. It's recorded. You can find a link to it. I had a panel that I interviewed with a class action lawyer who's been fighting very hard so that there is money in that fund, and there's a lot of money in that fund, and they're very worried that the lawyers that have been fighting to make sure that there's some money there, not just for the investors and the shareholders, but for you guys who were harmed by the decisions that the utility made about how they were going to invest in fire prevention, and how they didn't invest in fire prevention, you really have nothing to lose, and the deadline is Saturday at 5. Now, if you feel like, I just can't stand to think about this, but I don't want to blow it, you can put the claim in pretty bare bones, and you can fix it later. You can get help to fix it. But again, you don't need an attorney to do this. Basically, what you need is to be able to fill out the forms. Okay, next. Problem-solving best practices, get things in writing, keep it professional, let them know you're the squeaky wheel that's going to hang in there, and that, a lot of people vent on their adjusters, and it really isn't helpful because they are human beings. And if they feel like you're attacking them personally, they're gonna make your life as hard as they can. And so, again, the insurance company didn't start the fire, so, they may be frustrating you, but the more businesslike you can be in documenting that cost and holding them to their obligations, the better things will go. So CDI, that's the California Department of Insurance. There's their toll-free number. They have a process, the RFA, request for assistance. It's also, you can call it a complaint process. And it's free, and you can file a complaint with them by calling them or by going online. But you really have to keep your expectations somewhat modest for what they can do for you. Why? Because they're supposed to be in the middle between you and the insurance companies, right? They're not, even though, the head of that agency is an elected official and he wants you to feel that he's your advocate, the reality is they are in the middle between you and your insurer. They're not your advocate, right? You're your own advocate. If you hire somebody to be your advocate, they're your advocate. The CDI they are a government agency. Now, they are charged with enforcing the law, but a lot of the complaints people bring to them are not black and white. That's why the insurance company is holding firm on a position you don't agree with, because they feel like they have enough evidence on their side, right? So what can the CDI help you with? They can help you with getting extensions. They're working very hard to get the ALE extensions, even though they keep saying they don't really have the authority to force the insurance companies, but they're trying. And they claim that they have collected, I think yesterday they said they returned some $10 million to survivors who filed complaints. They will not be your free lawyer. They will not remedy your underinsurance problem. They will not remedy necessarily your lowballing problem unless it's really, really clear that the insurance company tried to rip you off. And unless the evidence is really clear, they're going to say this is a factual dispute and we cannot go any further. Next slide. Okay, so you can hire professional help. And most people have never heard of something called a policyholder attorney. And that is a category of attorney that day in and day out represents people in insurance disputes. They're not necessarily a personal injury lawyer or a real estate lawyer, but they are people who really know insurance. Those are the kind of people that are involved in our organization, and they're sort of a special breed. I think of them sometimes as sort of the stallions of the plaintiff's bar, because insurance is very technical and you really need to know your stuff. And insurance companies need to respect your lawyer and think that your lawyer could actually, win in order for it to actually help you. Because if you hire somebody who's like your uncle or your cousin or your neighbor and they really don't know insurance, the insurance company is going to just roll right over them and it's not going to help you at all. So we say, if you feel like you are at a point where you just can't fight anymore, but you have a fair amount of money still on the table, it's totally worth talking to a policyholder attorney, because most of them, all of them, work on a contingency fee basis. So it's not like you're going to have to cough up hourly fees to pay them. I'm not an advocate of dragging out your insurance claim, right? Obviously, we want you to get in, get out, and get back home, right? Our whole approach is aimed at helping you collect the insurance benefits you already paid for, right, without having to spend money. But the reality is that you may be at a point where you do need a lawyer. So we do have a directory of law firms that support us by making an annual donation. And they're listed in a directory, if you could just go back for one split second to that last one. So they're listed in this directory, the uphelp.org/sponsors. And you'll find a bunch of them, several of them are coming up this afternoon. And, you know, again, I'm not pro-litigation, I'm pro-policyholder. So we're just here to bring you the leverage to help you. So that's it for my presentation. We went a little bit over, but I can take a few questions, and I'm happy to do that. So I think you said you had one, sir.
Yes, getting back to the commission, insurance commission.
Yes.
So, as you know, we've been going through this for the last 2 years, trying to deal with Nationwide. And on numerous occasions, we all have it documented, they've said one adjuster said one thing, and they've come back later and saying that adjuster, they've actually said, he was wrong, I'm sorry. So they apologized for the wrong that they committed. So anyway, I won't go through all the details, I'll talk to the attorney. What I'm wondering is, what teeth does the commission have? Because they've said they've recommended 100% on the contents.
Right.
They've recommended, with that letter you showed, to not deduct the land value, but it's just a recommendation.
Right.
So if they come and say, you guys are completely right, and they send a letter to the insurance company, they are right, does it hold any water?
Well, okay, so the Department of Insurance is the agency that has the authority to enforce the Fair Claims regulations. So like, you know, I'm an attorney. When I was in private practice, I couldn't go, I don't have the same power they have to say, okay, the insurance company has violated the regulations and I'm going to issue, you know, I'm going to fine them, right? The department has that authority. They can issue fines and penalties, right? But again, like I was saying earlier, it needs to be, you have to have a really strong case for them to go out there because, you know, they're a political, you know, the head of the agency is an elected official, and I don't know if you know, like right now, our insurance commissioner is in a bit of hot water for taking money from insurance companies, campaign contributions, and then so unfortunately, you know, like the insurance commissioner, the bully pulpit, which is sort of one of their main sources of power, is kind of a little bit compromised right now because, you know, there's a sort of bit of a cloud over him. He's actually a really good guy. I think he wants to do the right thing, but what I'm trying to say is that the private bar is a lot more powerful in this context than this agency is because, again, you know, the agency, it really does depend on how bold the commissioner is in some ways because, you know, you had Dave Jones was the commissioner before, and he's the one who started this, I think, pretty good, effective process of naming names of like, okay, they named names when we were trying to pressure insurers to waive the inventory itemization. You know, Dave Jones came out and he named the names, which is a good way, you know, putting sort of PR pressure on the insurers. But if you really want to force a big company like Nationwide or any of them really, you know, generally you're going to have to hire a lawyer, a good lawyer, because that's the language they speak is, okay, you know, they know that the insurance department is going to try to just sort of take the path of least resistance. Whereas, so on things like the land value deduction, I believe, until we get a good case on the books, it's just going to keep on going, and you know the only way you're going to really force force your insurer is by hiring a professional advocate. Because I was at the Department of Insurance last week meeting with the commissioner, and one of the last things one of his deputies said to me when I was getting the elevators, you know, I don't really agree with you on the land value thing. I was like, you know, really? Thanks. You know, thanks a lot. So they're not going to get that done for you. That's going to have to be a private lawyer. That's that's the problem. I mean, they really mean well, and they really are trying. I mean, on the ALE benefit extension, they have been trying to use whatever arrows they have in their quiver, but they're not litigating, and litigation is the real kind of, that's there are only two things that insurance companies care about. They don't like bad publicity, and they don't like big jury verdicts. And that's what gets them.
They don't like what?
Jury verdicts. They don't like being hit with a big jury verdict. So that's where your leverage comes from.
I'd like to have you extend your comments about, and as well for what your organization and what CDI is, around what might be viewed as a proximate problem in the insurance industry, and that is around setting the limits for a so-called replacement policy.
Right.
As you commented, what we have discovered very quickly is that the insurance industry holds us as consumers responsible for setting those limits. And there's such an asymmetry of information involved here. We are not in any position to know what contractors might charge for building a home. We don't know what those charges might be in the future. We don't know what they might be in the case of a major fire. And yet we buy policies that have literally a statement saying this policy is based on the replacement cost for your home and in your community, which is in just violent contradiction to what those real costs actually are when you look at it, the limit. So, but I understand that in case law, and in fact, a case called Everett versus State Farm.
You've been doing your homework.
That the courts have decided that it's really the responsibility of individual homeowners to have the expertise or to engage the expertise to set these limits. Yet what's really happening when we go to buy a policy, we call an insurance agent. The insurance agent asks you, what did you pay for the house? Where is it located? What is it made of? They might be using Xactimate or something else, and they send you an estimate or a proposal, and you buy it. But then you are structurally underinsured. What's United Policyholder, what's CDI doing about this practice that is systematically underinsuring people?
Everything we can. So we've been, this has been going on for a while, right? We tried to we've gone to the legislature many times and said, if you just pass a law that says that it is the insurance company's obligation to recommend adequate limits to replace the asset, and then if the consumer says they don't want it, okay. But clearly putting the onus, they won't go there. There's a lot of elected officials that are insurance agents. You go up there and you go to the Assembly Insurance Committee, and there's at least 3, I think, people who are either currently insurance agents or were. So they're not going to let that kind of law get through because they feel like they like it the way it is. You can't blame them. They like it the way it is. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to sell you a product that has the word replacement, but then they're not actually delivering that, right? So what have we gotten? We've gotten little baby steps. So we got a law through that said, and the department the department really does work hard to help on this issue. You can come out and it's fine. We're talking about underinsurance. We've gone a little bit over here, but we're going to wrap up in a minute. But this is one of the attorneys that has been sort of in this dialogue with us for quite a while. So the Department of Insurance, first they did a whole fact-finding, a couple of years that we participated in to say, okay, let's create a list of all the components of a house that the insurance company is now legally obligated to consider when they are setting the insured value of a home, right? So they did that. The insurance company sued them, but we won. And so there is a California Supreme Court decision that says that the insurance company must at least do this accurate calculation of at the point of sale. Now, but then of course it didn't. The legislation didn't say it just said they had to do that calculation. It didn't say they had to give it to you, so that was kind of a weird thing. So we fixed that. So last year, the legislature went back in, and they said, and yes, and they have to give you that estimate. I think it's every 2 years. So we've got a half of a solution, but, you know, it's, again, until we get that court decision that overturns Everett and is real, that reflects what really goes on, which is, we don't know how much it's gonna cost to replace our asset. In every way, the process is rigged to lull you into a false sense of security. So, you know, but your elected officials from this area they're deep in it now, and Dodd and Levine and Aguirre Curry and McGuire. I don't know if those are your, did I list your people? So they're all, I mean, they are laser focused on what more can we do in the legislature. And I think you just need to call your elected officials and say, that's my priority. Get the law fixed, to put the legal duty to set limits accurately where it belongs, on the insurance company that has the data, they get the building cost data, they know what it costs, they know what demand surge, they know what happens after disasters, because that's their business. Yeah.
I just have a separate question. Are the PG&E forms that are due on October 21 available online?
Yeah, that, if you could just go back to that slide, Mark, it's, okay, so right here. Actually, this doesn't give the email. Is this, okay, so if you go to our website here, this is just a screenshot of the page. But it's, what is the, Mark, can you figure out the URL, the address? I know if you just type in Google PG&E claim and then prime clerk, that's the name of the site. It should take you there. Or you can go to our website and use the search box and just put PG&E.
Does this have to be postmarked October 21 or received?
I believe, can you go to the next?
Or you can file it online?
Can you go to this one? 5 p.m. I can't remember if it's postmarked, but I wouldn't wait.
No,
you know,
I know.
you can hand deliver it too. So, and you know, there is no shortage of lawyers that would be happy to help you with it. And there's a survivor, a really great guy, Jim Finn, who was part of our panel for the webinar, and he set up a PG&E info website. Do you have that URL? It's like
restructuring.primeclerk.com.
Okay, so restructuring.primeclerk.com, but Jim Finn's the PG&E info page, it's like, anyway, you'll find it from our website. And he set it up to make it, we said, okay, this has got to be really simple, really clear, and again, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's not like an easy form, but you can do it.
Okay.
And for clarity, Saturday is not the 21st.
That's a good point.
Monday.
Oh, my goodness.
Was the question you said hand deliver, it means to a local PG&E office? Or what? We think it's Saturday.
All right, Mark, gentlemen,
Monday.
you're in deep hot water. Okay, so it's Monday, but we have the date right. All right, so we're going to have to wrap up the webinar portion. Our attorney volunteers are starting to filter in, and the appointments are going to start at 12:30. But I want to thank all of you for coming, and then again, we're rooting for you. We're trying to help solve these problems. It's a work in progress.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, what was the question?
I kept getting things in the mail from PG&E, and I didn't know if I had done it or not. It was like, I get these things, and then I call PG&E, and She said, oh, you didn't have to do anything. And I'm like, I have no clue. I had no clue if I filled something out and sent it in or not.
Well, maybe you should do it again, just to.
Yeah, this last question that we got from somebody who was viewing off-site was what kind of pressure is being put on State Farm? And I think, you know, the group that hosted the rally for insurance justice is trying to get the city of Santa Rosa to change the name of State Farm Way, yeah, right? And then today, the document that the department is putting out naming names is a way, and it's just to work with, you know, do whatever you can to be as loud as you can, but working with the group that Lisa Frizzi and others in Santa Rosa, you know, with the department is the best way to keep the pressure on, be the squeaky wheel. So thank you again, all of you, and to the Napa Valley Community Foundation for hosting.
Can you answer my question?
Well, hang on, as long as we make sure make sure it gets recorded to the cloud.